Venn diagrams with probability. And it's going to look like very similar to the previous videos from Focus 9 if you watch those. So the only new thing here is 1, we'll be doing probabilities, but 2 is some notation. And so one thing is that we have this, when we see the word and we talked about, and we see the word or that we talked about, they have these symbols, and specifically they are intersections and unions in math. They actually mean things. So and or we commonly use actually are an intersection and a union. So what that looks like is you may have some notation like this, like probability of event A. So that's something happening like, drawing a red card from a deck, or rolling a number cube and getting a 3. So these are just A and B are just events. And then this the symbol here, the U, is the union, and it just means or. So this is probability of A or B happening. This one is probability of A and B happening. And then the and, remember, needs to be, both of them have to happen for this probability to meet the criteria of this probability. And then just a reminder that the little c up there looks like an exponent for probability of A. Complement means the probability of it not occurring. Probability of not A occurring. And that sounds different than probability of A not occurring. We mean the probability of not A occurring. So anything else that could occur. We did this before, so we could fill this out probably a little bit more quickly than last time. Please report that 78% of drivers stopped on suspicion of drunk driving are given a breath test. So we know the full circle is 78%. We know that 36 are given a blood test, and 22 both tests. So we kind of got to start in the middle with 22. We knew that because it's both tests. Then we could figure out what the other two are now. So 78% is the full circle of breath tests. And so if this whole thing is 78 and 22 of it's right there, then this has to be 56 in this region. Same thing with the other guy. It's 36 total, but 22 is in the middle. So this is 14. And I'm just subtracting them to see what's in the other region. And we can kind of figure this out. I mean, each of the regions, each of the numbers represent their specific region, their closed off region. So, you have 56 and 22 is 78, plus another 14 is 92. And so anything involving these circles is 92. That means outside the circles it has to be 8. And if you think about 8%, and if you think about it, that would have to be representing the amount of people who were stopped on suspicion, but then weren't given either test. Okay, so then for probability, then these are all percent, so this is a little easier. For probability of giving a breath test, of being stopped and given a breath test, that's the whole circle. Like, these are all of these people, because certainly if they've been given both tests, they at least were also given a breath test. So we can just straight up say this is 78 percent, or 78 out of 100, or 0.78. These are all accurate representations of a probability. I think our preferred method is probably going to be this, because that's moving forward. That's the type of probability you would use if you ever went anywhere with probability. And then number 2 is going to be a lot easier than it may seem. This little C right here seems kind of messy, but you're talking about the probability of not breath test. And so that may sound confusing as well, but we already know that if we know that this is 78 out of 100, then this is going to be the complement. That's the opposite amount out of 100. So 22 out of 100, and again, it's out of 100 because we're talking about percents, but that's just really just 0.22, or 22%. And then we have the notation here, so that's kind of the new thing. So the probability of getting a blood or a breath test. And so at the beginning, before we drew a Venn diagram, we couldn't just add up 78 and then 36, because that's going to end up being, more than 100%, and that shouldn't make any sense. But when we broke it down, we knew the both was in the middle, so the 22 is getting counted twice. So we should just be a blood or breath means this or both. If you watch the previous videos, that would be like someone asking you if you had coffee, and they're like, "Oh, do you want coffee or do you want cream or sugar?" That kind of means, cream or sugar or both. So this is the or is inclusive. It includes the both situation. So we'd add up all of those and we would get 92 out of 100, or 0.92, or 92%. And then, so that's or includes all three. The blood and breath, to fit this criteria, it has to strictly be both. So that's also a little easier because it's always just the both. It's the one in the middle. So that's 0.22. All right, and then the probability of a blood complement, the blood test complement, would be just what are all of the blood tests. So that together is going to be 36, but we want the complement to that. So like the opposite of 36%, and that would be 64%. I just subtracted from 100. So complement means like opposite out of the total, essentially. All right, and one quick note: if you see that breath test complement and blood and breath, they have the same probability. It's just coincidence, and here's why. Because what we added up for breath test complement, that would be everything that's not in the breath test circle. So like here's the breath test circle, and it was 78. Everything that's not in there would be the 14 and the 8. If you add those up, you get 0.22. Okay, so that's where this came from. This blood and breath the 22 out of 100, or 22%, or 0.22, came from the both. So it's just coincidence those are the same numbers. Okay.